Assalamu alaikum. Hello again. In this new video, let's discover the content of the course Algorithms and Data Structures. Starting by the first chapter, Basics of Algorithms. By the end of this chapter, you will be able to define an algorithm, a program, and their key characteristics, identify objects like constants, variables, and basic data types, evaluate expressions, and understand operator precedence and priority. Write simple algorithms using some basic operations like assignment, input, and output. Translate a simple algorithm into C++ programming language. And finally, use a development environment, or what we call integrated development environment. As an outline, we start by introducing algorithms and what programming is used for. Objects of an algorithm like constants, variables, identifiers, etc. Arithmetic and logical expressions like basic mathematical operations and some logical concepts. The structure of an algorithm and some basic instructions. How to move from a real-world problem to an executable program. And finally, getting started with C++ programming language, of course using one of the famous development environments like Visual Studio Code. Let's move to the next chapter, control structures. What we're gonna see here: apply conditions, or the conditions if and switch for decision making, using loops like for, while, and while for repetitions. Choose the appropriate control structure. And finally, implement algorithms or programs using control structures. As an outline, starting by conditional control structures, which means tests to make our algorithm able to decide which set of instructions it should execute. Next one, the three types of loops to give our algorithm the ability to repeat a set of instructions as it needs. Now we move to a very important concept in algorithms, which is arrays, presented as chapter 3, arrays and matrices. By the end of this chapter, you will have the ability to define and declare arrays, and here we talk about vectors and matrices, access and modify elements using indices, traverse arrays and matrices using loops. So you need to have the concept of loops before starting this chapter, and solve problems using collections of homogeneous data, which means data that have the same type. As an outline, we start by an introduction to data storing problem, as we will use arrays and matrices to store data. Next, we're gonna present one-dimensional arrays, means vectors, as presented here. And finally, two-dimensional arrays, which are matrices, as presented here. It's the same concept as an array, but with a row and a column. The fourth chapter, functions and procedures, or mostly known as functions. This chapter will give you the ability to define and implement functions and procedures, use parameters by value or by reference, use the return statement to return some results or something from the function, how to call the subprograms from the main function, and finally structuring your program into subprogram to achieve the modularization. As content, we're gonna introduce subprograms, why using them, and what are the advantages behind. Also, why exactly function and procedure. Next one, what are parameters, how to pass them to a subprogram, and what is the difference between passing a parameter by value and by reference. And finally, what is the return keyword, where and how to use it. Now let's move to the final chapter, data structures, which is a main part of this course's name. We had an idea about storing homogeneous data in the third chapter, arrays and matrices. Now, what if we have heterogeneous data, like the need to present a vehicle or a student and his characteristics using one single variable? As objectives of this chapter, you will have the ability to explain the need for structures, why using them, define a structure using the keyword struct in C++, declare and access the members or the properties of a structure, use structures to organize complex data. As an outline, we're gonna understand the need to use structures instead of other solutions like arrays. So we need to understand the problem of structuring data. We're gonna see how to present and how to organize a data structure. And finally, what are properties or members of a structure and how to present them properly. As a computer science student or first year computer science student, this course is very important for your journey. Thank you for your attention. See you in another video.